Mr. Linval Freeman, Chairman of the Board of Sygnus Credit Investments. Other board members, Mr. Damian Chin, Ms. Hope Fisher, Mr. Beresford Gray, President and CEO of Sygnus Capital, respective members of the Sygnus executive team, shareholders, members of the media, fellow team members, distinguished guests both in person and online, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the sixth staging of the Sygnus Credit Investment Annual General Meeting. It's a pleasure to host everyone gathered here today in person and those who are joining us online as we come together to reflect on our journey, celebrate our achievements, and chart the course for an even more important and promising future. This year has been filled with both challenges and triumphs. And as we convene today, I'm reminded of the incredible resilience and dedication that defines our Sygnus family. It is indeed our unwavering commitment and trust that continues to propel us forward on this remarkable journey. In the next few hours, we will hear remarks from Beres Gray, our CEO, as well as Jason Morris, our CIO, and we look forward to an engaging session where you get the opportunity to ask questions. And so as we navigate this dynamic landscape of private credit, we remain steadfast in our mission to create value, drive innovation, and deliver exceptional results for our investors and our partners. And so without any further ado, let us begin this important meeting, one that represents not only a reflection of past financial year, but also a promise of a bright future. Together, we will continue to navigate exciting opportunities and seize the possibilities that lies ahead. Again, thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to an engaging and productive annual general meeting. Please join me in welcoming our chairman to officially bring this meeting to order.
Thank you very much, Gregory. Good morning, everyone. I normally start by saying this is the day that the Lord has made, and we should rejoice in it. Okay? Because we're very thankful that many of us have lived to see 2024. So I am the chairman of the board, as was said by Gregory, and I take this opportunity to welcome everyone to the 6th annual general meeting of SCI. I'm advised by the company secretary that in accordance with the Articles of Association, a quorum is present by proxy and in person. The meeting is therefore properly constituted, and I now declare the annual general meeting open. Today I will preside over the majority of the meeting. However, I will be temporarily handing over to Director Ike Johnson to preside over the adoption of the resolution for the re-election of directors, because as chairman, I'm a little bit conflicted, being one of the retiring directors. During today's AGM, therefore, 2 directors, including myself and Hope Fisher, will retire. As per the company's articles, all retiring directors are eligible for re-election. We have expressed our interest, myself and Hope, in being re-elected to the board and are eager to continue serving as directors. So therefore, before we begin the formal procedures, the remaining formal procedures, I would like to invite Dr. Ike Johnson to address this morning's proceedings. Dr. Ike?
Good morning, Linval, and thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Ike Johnson, and I'm a director of Sygnus Credit Investments Limited. I wish to once again welcome you all to our 6th AGM. I have been asked to conduct a particular item on the agenda, which is resolution number 2, the election of directors. In accordance with Article 149 and 150 of the company's amended and restated Articles of Association, at each general meeting of the company, 1/3 of our directors, except for the managing director, if appointed, or the director appointed by the holder of the special share, shall retire. During today's annual general meeting, 2 directors will retire. The directors retiring under these articles are Ms. Hope Fisher and the chairman, Mr. Linval Freeman. As per the company's articles, all retired directors are eligible for re-election. The directors have expressed their interest in being re-elected. With your permission, therefore, I would like to bring this resolution forward and ask that the election of the directors be conducted before the other items on the agenda. Before we move to adopt the resolution, I would like to outline the procedures for voting. If casting a vote in person attendance, shareholders shall, in physical attendance, will vote by a show of hands. Once we get to the business section of the AGM and the voting on the resolutions, I will read each resolution and thereafter table for adoption. Shareholders will be asked to vote for the resolution by a show of hands. Shareholders who are for the resolution will raise their hands, followed by shareholders who are against the resolution. The scrutineer present will take account of the number of hands raised for and against the resolution, and this total will be added to the shareholders who voted virtually and via proxy. If a shareholder abstains, their vote will not be included in the count. Each shareholder or proxy present would have received either a red or yellow wristband. When raising your hand to signify your vote, please ensure that you show the wristband to ensure that your vote is properly counted. If casting a vote via virtual attendance, during each resolution, you should wait for your options to pop up on screen or click Vote Now on your screen. Once resolution is on screen, select the For or Against option, then select Submit Vote at the bottom of the screen. You will be asked to confirm your vote. Select Yes to confirm your vote or select No if you want to change your vote. If casting a vote via proxy, the company secretary has advised that a number of valid proxies have been received in relation to these resolutions. In relation to the proxies where the chairman has been appointed to vote, he will vote all directed proxies in accordance with the directions provided. Where undirected proxies have been given, the chair of the meeting will vote the undirected proxies in favor of all resolutions. For the remaining proxies, the proxy holder must attend the meeting in person or virtually to represent the member. Those proxies will be deemed valid once the registrar has confirmed the attendance of the appointed proxy holder. Proxy holders may also vote online where the shareholder has not indicated their vote on the proxy form. Once the registrar has confirmed the identity of the proxy holder online, they will be allowed to participate. Mr. Andrew Foreman will act as scrutineer and will confirm the vote by show of hands as well as the total votes for each resolution hereafter. Votes will close and I will announce the results. Now that I have outlined the procedure for voting, I will now move to resolution number 3, election of directors on the notice. Director Linval Freeman, who is our chairman, and Director Hope Fisher, who retire by rotation in accordance with Article 149 and 150 of the company's articles, both being eligible for re-election, have offered themselves for re-election. With your permission, I would like to bring forward this resolution and ask the election of
2510957.
Sorry. With your permission, I would like to bring forward this resolution and ask that the election of Director Freeman and Director Fisher be done before the other items on the agenda. The proposed resolutions are as follows. That Mr. Linval McDougall Freeman, who retires by rotation in accordance with Articles 149 and 150 of the company's amended and restated Articles of Association, and who, being eligible, offer himself for re-election as director of the company, be re-elected a director of the company. So now we will take the
I think our shareholders are banded in red. So we're going to take the votes this morning. Andrew, the scrutineer, we're just going to ask you to raise your hand if you're in favor of the resolution. We'll take that count. Then we'll do resolution 3B and we'll also take that count as well. So I'll hand over now and we can start our voting process.
All those in favor of re-election of Mr. Linval Freeman, please show your hands. The resolution is carried.
Thank you very much, Andrew. We will now move to the next resolution, which is that Miss Hope Patricia Fisher, who retires by rotation in accordance with Articles 149 and 150 of the company's amended and restated Articles of Association, and who, being eligible, offers herself for re-election as a director of the company, be re-elected as a director of the company.
Once again, shareholders, we're taking resolution number 3B. We'll ask that you vote via show of hands. So I'll hand over to our scrutineer, Andrew Foreman, and he'll take the votes from here. Thank you.
Kindly keep your hands up for me. Thank you.
So, Andrew, I take it the resolution has been carried.
We're just checking the vote count online.
Okay.
The resolution is carried.
Thank you, Andrew. Following the tallying of the votes related to resolution number 3, election of directors, shareholders have voted in favor of the resolutions. I therefore declare the resolution carried. I will now hand over the meeting to our duly elected chairman, Mr. Linval Freeman.
Thank you very much, Director. Thank you very much, shareholders. I haven't lost my job, right? I managed to keep it. As Director Ike was calling my name, the middle name McDougall, some people find it very, very funny. I remember the first time it was mentioned in primary school. It really generated a lot of laughter because they hadn't heard the name McDougall before, but it's really a name that I really love, you know, just to say that. I'm advised by our corporate secretary that there are no apologies for absence. Before I go much further, though, I'd like, on behalf of Director Fisher, to express gratitude for the vote of confidence in re-electing us to the board. As directors, we are firmly committed to representing the interests of the shareholders and other stakeholders and promoting the business of the company. Once again, I take this opportunity to welcome you all to this, our 6th annual general meeting of shareholders of SCI. We're very delighted that so many of you are able to join us today, both virtually and in person. I think we see the numbers in person, growing more than last year. Your presence here today demonstrates your commitment to our company, and we appreciate your interest and support. Each year, we look forward to this opportunity to meet with you and to share SCI's accomplishment during the year. And you'll hear further on this, that we have accomplished quite a bit in 2023. It is always our pleasure to meet with you all in person. However, in order to allow for a wider cross-section of our shareholders to participate in our meetings, the directors have agreed to have a hybrid meeting, thereby providing the option for participation both in person and virtually. The meeting is convened in St. Lucia, and we have a satellite location in Kingston, Jamaica, from which the proceedings of the AGM are being carried to you live. Shareholders will be able to view the proceedings of the AGM, vote on resolutions, and submit their comments and questions by logging on the e-platform being used to facilitate the AGM. The instructions to access the e-platform were provided in a shareholder advisory notice released to Jamaica Stock Exchange website and on various social media platforms. Registration for access to the AGM was also circulated to all shareholders and is open and will remain open for the duration of the meeting, and persons will be free to register and be admitted at any time. The notice of meeting and the form of proxy were dispatched to all shareholders on record in accordance with the company's articles of association. If there is no objection, I propose that the notice of meeting be taken as read. Before I commence today's proceedings, I will give a brief overview of the company. SCI is an international business company incorporated under the International Business Companies Act 1999 of St. Lucia, with its registered office located at 20 McCord Street, Castries, St. Lucia. SCI is a specialty private credit investment company dedicated to providing non-traditional financing to medium-sized firms across the wider Caribbean region. Non-traditional forms of credit are more customized and flexible than traditional financing. Consequently, the company offers an alternative channel through which medium-sized firms, which are typically underserved by traditional forms of finances, can access capital to drive their expansion and growth. The company targets mostly portfolio companies operating across a broad range of sectors, including manufacturing, distribution, financial services, energy, real estate, transportation, infrastructure, and business services. These portfolio companies typically have revenues between US $5 million and US $25 million. By virtue of the shares being listed on the main market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the company is subject to all laws applicable to issuers of securities in Jamaica and company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. I'd now like to introduce the directors of the company, and I'm very happy to see as many directors being present. In addition to myself, we have 6, by my count, other directors of the company with us this morning. Dr. Ike Johnson, who spoke earlier, is joining us virtually. Mr. Ian Williams, joining us virtually. Mr. Damian Chin, who is here sitting on the platform. Mr. Aris Masado, who is here sitting in the audience. Ms. Hope Fisher, who is also here, and Mr. Peter Thompson. And also, Peter, can you wave? Joining us as well. Mr. Rory McManara, a representative from our company secretary's MCSI Incorporated, is sitting in St. Lucia, in the St. Lucia office, while Valerie Rapier, a representative from our company secretary, MSCI, is also sitting in the St. Lucia office. The directors who are joining us virtually are able to fully participate in the meeting and to answer any questions that may be posed to them. Also in attendance are members of the investment managers executive and senior management team. Sitting at the podium with us this morning is Mr. Beresford Gray, the CEO of Sygnus Capital, Mr. Jason Morris, Chief Investment Officer of Sygnus Capital Limited. Other executives present include Shirley Hudson, who is marshalling at the back there, and she's the Chief Legal and Compliance Officer. Mr. Gregory Summers, who also spoke this morning, he's the Senior Vice President and Head of Investment Banking. David Cummins, who's sitting right in front of us here, Vice President and Head of Real Estate and Project Finance. Elizabeth James, Head of Wealth. Elizabeth, here somewhere, saw you earlier, up the top there. Monique Anthony, Chief Financial Officer. Monique, to my right over there. Yashi Hall, Vice President and Head of Risk Yashi. Yeah. Mr. Andrew Foreman, who also spoke earlier today, AVP Legal Counsel, and several other team members who are also here joining us today. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of the following persons. Representatives from our auditors, KPMG, Ms. Lisa Brathwaite, who is attending virtually. Representatives from our registrar and transfer agent, the Jamaica Central Securities Depository. Present with us today are Mrs. Chantrell Scarlett Dennis, as well as Shashita Manning. Yes? Several members of the press are also present, and some non-shareholders are also present with us. Throughout the meeting, I will refer to Sygnus Credit Investment as the company or SCI interchangeably, right? You have been provided with a copy of the agenda which set forth the proceedings for today. Minutes of the meeting that was held last year. The directors have confirmed that the minutes of the AGM held on the 18th of January 2023 are a true and correct record of that meeting. Copies of the minutes of that meeting are available on the company's website. The purpose of today's AGM is to consider the financial report of the company and to consider, if thought fit, pass various resolutions pertaining to the business of the company. The respective resolutions are outlined in the notice, are as follows. The first item of ordinary business is the adoption of the audited financial statements for the year ended 30 June 2023. The second item is a recommendation of the final dividend for the financial year ended 30 June 2023. The third item is the election of directors, which has already been executed. The fourth item is directors' remuneration, and the fifth item of business is the appointment of the auditors, KPMG, and to set their remuneration. And the resolutions are duly set out in the notice of the annual general meeting dated 27th of October 2023 and duly signed by the company secretary. The company secretary has advised that proxies have been lodged by 49 shareholders, and we maybe can update it as we go along, holding 22.8 million ordinary shares and representing 38.39% of the ordinary share capital of the company. Of the total proxies lodged, 30 shareholders holding approximately 95.8 million shares and representing 16% of the ordinary issued share capital of the company have appointed the chairman as a proxy holder, chairman meaning me. For the remaining proxies, the proxy holder must attend the meeting in person or virtually to represent the member. Those proxies will be deemed valid once the registrar has confirmed the attendance of the appointed proxy. Before moving into the formal business of the AGM, there are a number of procedural matters which I'd like to bring to your attention. Voting. Director Johnson has already outlined the procedure for voting for both the shareholders attending in person and virtually, so I need not go over that. Registration for access to the AGM will remain open, as I said before, and persons will be free to register and be admitted at any time during the meeting. As it relates to the voting process, once we get the business section of the AGM and the voting on the resolution completed, I will read the resolution and table for adoption. We present a section for question and answer. We'll have two question and answer segments. The first segment will be prior to the adoption of the resolution number 1, the adoption of the audited financial statements. The investment manager will make a presentation on the company's performance and the outlook for the company. At the end of the presentation, we'll have the first question and answer segment, where shareholders may ask any questions they desire. We have allotted 15 minutes for this segment to address your questions. Following the vote on the remaining resolutions, there will be a second question and answer segment where shareholders can ask questions relating to the company's overall business. We have allotted another 15 minutes in this segment to address your questions. This question and answer section will be moderated by Mr. Gregory Samuels. For the shareholders attending in person, if you wish to ask questions, you should indicate by a show of hand, and one of our hosts will provide you with a microphone where you will state your name and status as a shareholder for the minutes. For the shareholders attending virtually, if you wish to ask a question, you should select the question and answer option that is located on the screen and then enter your questions into the text provided. Select the send button located to the right of the text box to pose a question. The question will be read aloud by one of our hosts so that the other shareholders can hear the questions. Shareholders are asked to limit their questions to 2 to give others an opportunity to pose questions and to ensure the AGM agenda can be completed on time. Questions and comments from the floor should pertain to the specific matter under consideration. With this background, we will now move to the formal business of the AGM as set forth in the notice of the meeting and the agenda. In order to conduct an orderly meeting and give all shareholders an opportunity to participate, we will follow the agenda as outlined. I will now present the formal business of the meeting. We will take the remaining resolutions in the order as outlined in the notice. Audited financial statements. In accordance with Article 190 of the Company's amended and restated Articles of Association, the Company is obliged to lay before this meeting the audited financial statements together with the reports of the directors and auditors, which are contained in the Company's annual report for the year ended 30 June 2023. The audited accounts were circulated and are before the meeting for discussions. Before inviting discussions on the reports, I will invite the representatives from our external auditors, KPMG, and our investment manager of Sygnus Capital to make presentation on the auditor's report and the company's performance, respectively. Our external auditors, KPMG, have given their opinion that the audited financial statement present a true and fair view of the financial position of the company as at 30 June 2023. Ms. Lisa Brathwaite, partner of KPMG, is a representative joining us virtually today. If she's ready, I will now hand over to her for her to read the auditor's report. Ms. Brathwaite, are you ready?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'll proceed. Good morning again to everyone, shareholders, chair, members of the board, members of management. It's a pleasure to be here with you virtually this morning. So I will now proceed to read the salient parts of the auditor's report. So it is the independent auditor's report to the members of Sygnus Credit Investments Limited. I'll read the opinion paragraph first. We have audited the financial statements of Sygnus Credit Investments Limited, the company, comprising the separate financial statements of the company and the consolidated financial statements of the company and its subsidiaries, collectively the group, set out on pages 9 to 71, which comprise the group's and company's statements of financial position as at June 30th, 2023, the group's and company's statements of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, changes in equity and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes comprising significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the group and company as at June 30th, 2023, and the group's and company's financial performance, and the group's and company's cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with IFRS standards as issued by the International Accounting Standards Board, abbreviated to IFRS standards. I'll then take you through the basis for opinion. We conducted our audit in accordance with International Standards on Auditing, ISAs. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the section that's called the Auditor's Responsibilities for the Audit of the Financial Statements section of our report. We are independent of the group and company in accordance with International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, including International Independent Standards, the IASB Code, together with the ethical requirements that are relevant to our audit of the financial statements in St. Lucia, and we have fulfilled our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with these requirements and the IASB Code. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. And the last section I'll take you through is on page 6 of the report. And that is the section on auditors' responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements. So we're moving to page 6. And that section reads as follows. Again, it's the section auditors' responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements. It reads, our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with ISAs will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. Misstatements can arise from fraud or error and are considered material if, individually or in the aggregate, they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decisions of users taken on the basis of these financial statements. A further description of our responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements is included in the appendix to this auditor's report. And this description, which is located at pages 7 to 8, forms part of our auditor's report. And of course, the engagement partner on the audit resulting in this independent auditor's report is myself, Lisa Brathwaite. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lisa. I remember the days when I had to read those auditors' report. Very long. I now invite Mr. Jason Morris, Chief Investment Officer for Sygnus Capital Limited, our investment manager, to make a presentation on the performance and outlook of the company. Jason?
Morning, everyone. Happy 2024 to all of you. I wish you prosperity and lots of joy. I will briefly go through some of the key items that SCI would have achieved during the course of the financial year, and then try to give some insights into where the company is heading and a short comment on the performance for the first quarter, which would have ended September. Is there a... So while I wait for this. Okay, so to kick this off, I just want to bring some perspective to what SCI has been doing since inception. The company, is about 6.5 years old now. Very, very short lifespan. So, it's very important to look at the perspective. So in 2016, we would have done a private placement for $16 million US. Subsequent to that, an IPO in 2018, $22 million, and then a public listing on the JC for $38 million, which caused SCI to become the largest publicly listed private credit investment firm in the entire Caribbean region. In 2021, or more appropriately in December 2020, in the midst of COVID, we then went to market for an additional public offering, which was actually oversubscribed, and that netted $27 million US, which at the time, I think only 2 firms actually raised capital on the JC, if memory serves me right, during COVID in 2020. So that's an amazing achievement again. 2021 again, we had promised shareholders that we wanted to get a credit rating, and we achieved that in 2021 while still in the middle of COVID, right? And we actually got an investment grade credit rating from Caracris of JM BBB with a stable outlook. And during the rest of that year, we actually hit 100 million in assets under management by December of 2021. Fast forward to 2022, would have done the first acquisition of many to come, which is Accrescent Financial Corporation, $24 million US, and I have some key highlights to provide on that later in the presentation of how the Puerto Rico business is performing. And then, of course, we would have gotten upgraded, credit rating upgraded to JM BBB Plus in 2022. In 2023, which is the year that we are having under review, happy to report that for the financial year ended June 2023, SCI would have registered its highest net profit in history of $5.13 million US. Subsequent to the end of the financial year, then SCI would have paid, on the back of that financial performance, a record $1.6 million US in an interim dividend in October 2023. And then finally, in December of 2023, SCI would have gone to the public markets once again, this time for preference shares, and went for 25 million US. The pref share was 100% oversubscribed, and SCI was able to raise $50 million US, which is a record in terms of capital raising in the history of SCI. Now I want to underscore the fact that the public markets are very, very important for deployment, for capital seekers, and for SCI that's no less important, because in sum total, SCI would have raised across 3 transactions $100 million US from on the Jamaica Stock Exchange in the history of the company, and that I think is phenomenal, given the company is just 6.5 years old. Since inception, SCI would have made a promise to shareholders to consistently pay out dividends, and I'm happy to report that, including the dividend that was paid subsequent to the end of the financial year, SCI has distributed back to shareholders raw cash in their hand, $11.95 million US. So that's roughly 1.8 billion Jamaican dollars for those who are math whiz. And final point I want to highlight as a backdrop is that since inception, SCI, combined with the Puerto Rico business, since we did the acquisition, would have deployed $394 million US across multiple Caribbean territories and industries, including $129 million that Accrescent has deployed since we did the acquisition on February 28, 2022. And that $129 million US in capital deployed by Accrescent is actually the highest deployment of capital by Accrescent in its history over that time frame. So now to the financial performance. This is a clean financial summary. So SCI would have recorded a net record total investment income approximately $8.89 million to be exact, up 7.8% over the prior year, and that was driven by a much larger portfolio of private credit investments, some fair value gains, and the performance of the Accrescent Financial Corporation in Puerto Rico. Net investment income would have been $5.08 million, which was down slightly, 3.5%. But as I said before, net profit was up 34.3%, which was a new record of $5.13 million. Earnings per share, 0.87 US cents, up from 0.65 US cents the prior year. And dividends paid during the financial year was $2.55 million US, down marginally from the $3.1 million that was paid in the previous financial year, but subsequent to the year end, would have then made the highest interim dividend payment in SCI's history. Of course, during the course of the financial year, Accrescent would have recorded $65.1 million in originations, the highest origination in the history of Accrescent for that 12-month period. And SCI would have also increased its stake in Accrescent from 93.7% as at the acquisition date on February 28, 2022 to 95%. And you can see why. And these charts just show you graphical depiction of SCI's performance per financial year. As you can see, SCI does not have a problem growing top-line revenue, which has been growing at 39.7%. on an annual basis since the company would have started. With regards to dividends paid, this is a graphical depiction of dividends paid, and I've done it here from a graphical perspective per calendar year. And the reason why we do it per calendar year, and in the audited financials and in the MD&A in the financials, we do it per financial year and per calendar year. I'm highlighting per calendar year here because the calendar year dividends paid actually reflects how much cash we are giving back to shareholders based on the entire performance of the financial year. Because as you know, you can't pay dividend before you get the financial results. And the dividend that's paid on the audited financial results is actually paid after the audited financial results. So that's just giving you perspective. And I would have spoken already about the total dividend that would have returned to investors in their hand, even during the middle of the worst pandemic for the past 100 years. And we have never, ever missed a dividend payment, and hopefully, we won't miss any. Looking at how we deal with expenses, there are two key metrics that we observe. The first one is called the efficiency ratio, and we basically take operating expenses divided by top-line revenue, and we have committed to shareholders to ensure that on a consistent basis we remain below 40%. As you can see over the life of the firm, we have by and large remained below the 40% threshold. We fell out of that threshold marginally, 42.8% at the just concluded financial year, and that was primarily driven by the fact that we had $119,000 in performance fee, obviously because the company would have substantially beaten the target hurdle rate of 6%, and returning a lot of dividends to shareholders. And second thing, we also had some one-off professional fees relating to completing the integration of Acquisent Financial Corporation in Puerto Rico. Second, and more important way that we look at expenditure is to take operating expenses and divide it by the total assets under management. And why is that important? Well, if the company has $100 on its balance sheet, and $20 worth of that is going to expenses, then the company isn't operating very efficiently. Well, there would be a lot of leakage, and that means there would be less money to pay shareholders in terms of dividend on a consistent basis, etc., etc. So we watch this very closely, and we committed from day one to investors to remain below 2.85%. And I'm happy to report, as you can see, we were substantially below that at 2.3% at the end of the financial year. And you can see that historically, we only ever exceeded this threshold once, and that was in 2021, when, again, we would have generated a record profit at that time. Now, this next slide is very important. Of course, we talk about profits, etc., but profits can fluctuate. We pay very close attention to the balance sheet of the company. And the shareholders' equity stood at $69.8 million, which is a new record for SCI, and it was up 3.5% versus $67.5 million in the previous year. And of course, on the total assets front, that would have hit a new record as well, $163.9 million, up 19.8%. And what drove the increase in shareholders' equity? Well, of course, if you make record profits, your retained earnings will increase, and therefore shareholders' equity will increase. And on the total asset side, we borrowed money using leverage, borrowed debt, and used that to help to grow the expansion of SCI investments. I want to highlight briefly share buyback program. During the year, would have been speaking about a share buyback program for maybe 2 years. Very transparent about what we wanted to do. We finally rolled that out during the financial year, and at the end of June, we launched the program. The program, just a quick review, is up to $9 million US. It will last for a period of up to 3 years, and we can execute transactions on the open market at any time, day or night, if we get to day trading in Jamaica. So, we started in June 2023, over the last 3 trading days of the financial year, just to get the program started so that we can have a benchmark to hold ourselves to say, okay, if we start, then that means we have an end goal, because it's 3 years, which the program will end, latest it can end is June 2026. Of course, we can always extend it, subject to the board of directors given their permission, or we can end it very, very early by buying back a lot of shares at any time. So the first buyback that we would have done would have totaled 2,614,799 shares, and we would have spent in total $246,000, and you can see the breakdown in terms of J dollar shares and US dollar shares. The majority of the money would have been spent on the J dollar shares, 35 million Jamaican dollars versus 136,000 US that was spent on US dollar shares. And you may ask the question, well, why did we not buy 50-50? Why did we didn't buy more US than J? So very simple. We are buying back the shares because we want to enhance shareholder value. And when we look at the valuation of the Jamaican dollar shares, they are ridiculously undervalued, like ridiculously crazy undervalued. So every time we are going to buy back shares, we look at the two share classes, and the one that makes sense to buy, which means that the one that gives us more shares in the buyback to quote-unquote retire, is the one that we're always going to buy, because we are just like any other investor looking at where value is, and that's how we spend the money. And going forward, that's the methodology that we'll use. So now briefly, on balance sheet of SCI, we pride ourselves on running a company that is very lowly levered. That means we're not using a pile of debt, which means if economic conditions are good, bad or ugly, SCI has the ability to navigate those economic conditions because we don't have a ton of debt on the balance sheet. And we have a threshold target of going no more than 2 times debt to equity, net debt to equity. And what this really means, if you compare this to other financial institutions, banks are levered up 10 times, and some are actually above 10 times leverage. All right? So if you look at the amount of equity or capital that they have relative to the total assets, you multiply the capital by 10, that's how they get the total assets, which means that if you were to experience a severe and substantial downturn, that could result in substantial losses. So we're not playing that game, we're not in that business, right? So 3 key things, debt to total assets, which we measured that at 0.5 times as a target threshold. We were below that threshold at 0.49 times, and the current capital that we just raised, the 50 million US, will cause that threshold figure to dramatically decline over the medium term. Asset coverage ratio, which is a measurement of, based on the assets on the balance sheet, if we were to experience a very severe situation where a lot of the portfolio assets started to default, how much asset do we think we could convert to pay off the debt? And that's one of the reasons why we don't run a very highly levered business. And we set ourselves a target threshold of to hit 1.5 times, which is actually an international benchmark for our private credit companies. So that means we should be able, even if you take out a lot of defaults, to convert our assets to cash and then still be able to cover all the debt that's on the balance sheet, 1.5 times. I spoke about the net debt to equity already. We're at 1.15 times versus 2 times limit. So now, very quickly for financial highlights for the quarter subsequent to the financial year. Net profits for the quarter would have been $744.8 thousand, down 54.2% versus 1.63 million for the prior quarter last year. But we are not alarmed, right? If you look at the performance, we actually had record net interest income of 2.13 million, up 36.1%, which is a phenomenal performance given the environment that we're in. The reason why net profit would have been down is that the Puerto Rican asset, Accrescent Financial Corporation, that I spoke about, that had that phenomenal performance during the financial year, is not consolidated 100% up into SCI. We have to do a fair valuation of it based on market multiples. And we are using US stock market multiples to evaluate what the net benefit to SCI is on the balance sheet and therefore flow through to the income statement. And unfortunately, at the end of the September quarter, the Fed was on a rate hiking spree, and everybody was fearful that rates would go to 5.5%, 6%. And so as rates go up, that affects the valuation of the asset that we're carrying, which pushes the asset down. Of course, if you fast forward to the end of December, I think you would have seen where the reverse would have happened. Enough said about that. Total investment income would have been 1.65 million, down 27.5%, for the exact same condition that I would have explained before. But as I said before, we're not worried about the Puerto Rican assets. It's doing very good in terms of deploying a lot of capital, and we expect this to be a major driver of growth for SCI over the medium to long term. Net investment income, 542.7 thousand, down from 1.37 million, down 60.5% from last year, again for the very same reason. And earnings per share, 0.13 US cents versus 0.28 US cents, again for the very same reason regarding Puerto Rico. Dividends per share, however, went up to 0.00272 per share, which was a record 1.6 million US I spoke about. So we're paying record dividends, even though it seems as if financial performance is a little bit off for the time being. For the end of the Q1 September quarter, debt to total assets, we were right on the threshold limit of 0.5 times. And I said before, going forward, this is going to fall. Asset coverage ratio, 1.89 times, above the 1.5 threshold limit. Debt to equity, 1.09 times, again, below the 2 times. And in terms of investment summary, the investment portfolio would have been up 22.2%, or 128.2 million US dollars. This excludes, of course, the carrying value of the Accrescent Financial Corporation, which was 24.3 million US dollars. If you include all of that, the total portfolio value would be 152.6 million. I hasten to add here that obviously during the course of the quarter to the end of December, obviously with the 50 million that SCI would have raised, it means that SCI itself, its total asset would now have hit 200 million US dollars for the very first time in its history. Portfolio company investments, 40 versus 33. Net investment commitments, 7.8 million versus 6.4 million. So we're doing quite well relative to the similar period last year. Fair value yield continued to increase, 14.5% versus 14%, in keeping with rates going higher. Tenor of investments, 1.70 years, and this is, you should think of this as we are basically investing for an average of 1.7 years and getting 14% yield. And we're not taking exceptional risk, right? Because throughout the history of SCI, we have only ever crystallized about 0.3% of all of the capital that we have deployed, which, phenomenal over 7 years, given that we had 2 years of COVID. And dry powder, very small dry powder on the balance sheet, 2.6 million, which is why we went out and raised new capital in December, which I've already spoken about. And at the same time, we're also pursuing 100 million with international partners for credit facilities to really amp up the growth of SCI. And we are in advanced discussions in terms of due diligence. And whenever we get those signatories signed on the dotted line, we'll provide an update to the market. Of course, SCI is very diversified across nearly 24 different industries in the English and Spanish-speaking Caribbean and across 8 different countries. Very quickly on Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, for the past 20 years, by the way, Puerto Rico celebrated its 20th year in existence. And so we should give a shout out to the Puerto Rico team. Fantastic team, doing a great job. So you can see that, over the last 20 years, they have done, 70 plus transactions every single year. More than 3 cities that they impact across Puerto Rico, more than 15 plus industries, and 7% of their transactions are for focus on women-led businesses. In terms of what AFC would have done during the September quarter, I spoke about the deployment record that they would have hit during the quarter, above 120 million. And, in terms of origination for the 12 months ended December, they would have hit a new record of more than 90 million in 2023. And second to last slide, because I know I'm running short on time, I want to focus on this for a minute. The 90 plus million in origination that Accrescent would have done during 2023, we need to, and SCI itself is going to start doing this, look at the impact that they have had on the Puerto Rican financial landscape and just the economy. Right? They are providing access to financing by providing more than 66 financing to what you call overlooked businesses, those who need access to capital but can't get it, right? And these businesses are are small businesses that focus on various sectors within communities, etc. They're also contributing to an improved healthcare system in Puerto Rico by funding 90 state-of-the-art medical equipment software to 18 different healthcare facilities. Remember that Puerto Rico is, in terms of biopharma, the largest biopharma state in the entire U.S. So we are getting exposure to these type of assets that we can't get in the English-speaking Caribbean, and that's one of the reasons why we went and did the acquisition for Accent. Affordable housing, they would have contributed to 237 housing units and 42 lots across 5 developments, particularly focused on affordable housing. Rural and urban communities, 105 hospitality rooms across 2 developments, therefore affecting, enhancing the lives of people who are in the lower socio-economic class. And finally, priority sectors, 17 financing across industries that require special financial support. Finally, and yes, we're at the end, very briefly, we have 4 main pillars of our strategy. The first one, obviously, is to grow Accent in a sustainable manner very rapidly over the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. And Dr. Ike Johnson actually lives in Puerto Rico. He has lived there for quite a while now, and he's spearheading that charge along with James Connor, the CEO, and the fantastic Accent team. Completed the integration effective July 1, 2023. We're going to sponsor a new impact fund in Puerto Rico. So, the business has been re-energized, rebalanced, and we are now just gunning for growth, so to speak. In terms of strategic growth path, we want to participate in $1 billion in private credit transactions across the region. We are well advanced in that stead. We need to get core revenues above 12.5 million US. That's well in progress. ROE above 10%, and this is something that we are pushing very hard, and we're trying to see if we can get that for the end of the current financial year that we are in. Let's see how that turns out. To grow EPS 20% per year, that's going to be an ongoing process, and you would have seen the growth that we did last year, and we're pushing for similar growth again this year. To get dividend yield to above 5%, minimum 5% on the APO price. Again, this is something that I think dividend yield right now is about 4.5–5%. We really need to get it in the 6–7% range, and we can only do that by increasing dividends. And one of the key main ways to do this is to increase fee income. So if you look at SCI's income statement, you realize that fee income would have grown from about, I don't remember, 57,000 or thereabouts last year to about 329,000, which is about 4% of top line revenue. And we are pushing to get fee income to be about 20% of total investment income, which means that it needs to be in about the $1 to $2 million US dollar range on an ongoing basis. I spoke about the credit facilities, so I won't go through that. Impact strategy, we roll this out in 2024. So more to come in the upcoming earnings call. And I spoke about the share buyback program. So that's all for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jason. I must say one of the things that I enjoy being chairman of SCI is the number of records that we seem to break each year. There's a famous cricketer that says records are made to be broken. So we had a record payment of dividends in September 2023. We had a record take-up of our preference share offer. We now have a record for the assets under management. And for 2024, we're going to have a record for the amount of profit we make. The other thing that I enjoy being a shareholder myself is the dividend checks. Every time I get a dividend check, I actually buy myself a drink. I'm so happy. And I hope all the shareholders are as happy as I am when you get your dividends check. And this is just a testament as to the performance of the company and how it is doing very, very well. So, ladies and gentlemen, before asking for the adoption of the audited financial statements, we're going to take some questions and some question and answer. We're going to have a question and answer segment now, which will be moderated by Gregory. So I invite you to share your thoughts and to ask your questions. any clarifications that you might need or any comments you might have on the financial statements. So we'll have a brief question and answer section now, Gregory.
So, morning again, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll start, as we usually do, we'll have some questions from the audience, and then we'll have some questions from our online audience. I see one shareholder is ready to go, so can you hand this mic? Mr. Livingston.
Yeah. Livingston, you could bring back, I don't quite remember this gentleman here. Mr. Jason, can you go back up there? Can I ask you two burning questions? The first one is 8.7 million or 8.9 million or so. You could explain to me as a shareholder, when you take the percent, like you have tax, you have expense over it. How much? I don't think I will that you make it. When you take out the tax and expense, could you explain to me how much money I have left back out of the 8.7 million?
Okay, so when you say how much money I have left, what do you mean?
Because you say you must have to take tax out of it, you know, out of the $8.7 million.
Yeah.
See? And you must have to take expense out. When you take all of that out of it, how much you have left out of the
right,
$8.7?
So I went through this already. So it's actually $5.13 million US dollars in net profit. So you have the top line revenue, 8.9 million. Then you have operating expenses, you have taxes, you have fair value gain on foreign exchange. You have fair value gain on financial instruments, and then, you know, when you subtract the negative ones and add the positive ones, we had 5.1 million left in net profit, which is what generated the record 5.13 million, from which we paid you 1.6 million in dividends, which is a record highest ever in October 2023.
All right, Mister. Next one. Explain to the shareholders the Jamaican dollar value less than 3 cents. Because I have to find it what going on. Because it's most like say the FRS I take with some menke or something, or two things. Either take with the minor share jump upon or something. Why is it? The email very clear. Why for the US dollars, everybody just jump on the US dollars. The Jamaican dollars, like, I don't know why it's like undervalued. Because I have it in them. I have the US and I have the Jamaican. Explain to why we can enjoy a good benefit of the Jamaican dollars. Because we have the Jamaican dollar shares. Explain to it.
Okay, so you're talking about SCI's J dollar shares.
Yeah.
Right. So I assume you're talking about the stock price. Is that what you're talking about?
No, you said undervalue. We rather big up US dollars more.
Yeah. So I mean, remember that it's a market of buyers and sellers, demand and supply. And if interest rates in Jamaica are very high at the moment, and so naturally, some shareholders who might have bought the shares for a quick profit decide that, hey, they can get a better investment by, for example, going buying a bond or put it on fixed deposit and get a decent interest rates, right? But what I'm saying is that the stock price is undervalued. And what that really means is, okay, if the stock price is cheap, you have bought the shares from some time ago and you are holding it, you're getting a very decent dividend payment. Patience is the name of the game, right? I keep saying every single year I come to AGM, SCI shares are tremendously undervalued, 1. 2, careful, one day you wake up and you go on the stock exchange and you're looking for SCI shares to buy it and you can't get it. That's how markets work, right? I can't tell you anything other than that. It's just demand and supply. But our job is to deliver tremendous financial performance, which, if you look at the financial performance, it's tremendous. It's 5.1 million US dollars in net profit. We have paid out substantial amount of that in dividends. I can't answer the question as to when the stock price is going to go up, but sometimes companies go through cycles, and sometimes companies' shares fall out of favor with investors for whatever reason. But if I can give you some word of advice, my modus operandi is when I see things that are cheap, I want to buy them, and I buy them a lot. So I remember buying, not a similar example, but I remember buying shares of Apple when Steve Jobs had died and everybody said that Apple can't innovate. and my average Apple stock price is $17 and now it's almost $200 a share. Of course, during the periods when it was going down with me for years upon years, I was suffering, but I was convinced in the belief that the management was exceptional, and that's what I buy in the company. So other than that, well, that's my advice to you. Obviously, I have a lot more information that I can't really tell you about, but all I'm saying, I keep saying that the shares are undervalued. The $J shares is tremendously undervalued. The book value, if you were to scrap SCI tomorrow morning and sell off all the assets, and let's assume that even some of the assets were to default, right? And you sell all the assets and pay off all the debt, you would get a value that's higher than where the $J stock is trading. That is what I mean by undervalued.
Mr. Chairman, I think the board need to sit down and talk about this. How we're not going to make a profit, how we're not grow. Don't say that, Sygnus. Knowledge comes from God, Mr. Chairman. Something is definitely wrong. Why you just say US dollars winner? We need to face over dollar. The US dollars, the Jamaican value less than 3 cents to the Jamaican dollar value less than 3 cents to the US dollar. Yeah, your board have got to sit down and try to figure out how you can grow the company and all this. Because something is definitely wrong. I just be a US, like say, them superior to us. What to Jamaican? God me deal with now. God is our national anthem, eternal Father. We need to grow our country. Something wrong.
Well, my final answer to you is very simple, right? So you
I want to get the point to me, Chair. Sure. Something makes sense.
Well, I want you to get my point as well.
Yeah.
And my point that I'm trying to explain to you is that if you are an investor, the question is, why did you buy the shares? So if like
why
me,
didn't buy the shares?
Hold on. Let me answer. Let me answer my own question. So I ask myself, why do I buy the shares? So if I buy the shares because it's for simplicity, is my retirement, right? Yeah. Then if I buy the shares, if I buy the shares at 15 Jamaican dollars per se, and it dropped to 5 Jamaican dollars, but I am 10 years away from retirement, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna buy more, because only time it matters to me is when we reach retirement, what is the value that I've gotten on this investment. If you buy the shares today and you intend to flip it tomorrow and the stock price down, then obviously that's a different argument. But if you're a long-term investor, and I keep coming every year and saying to you, the stock is undervalued, and you see the performance of the company, you see we're doing acquisitions, you see we're raising a lot of capital, we're in a high interest rate environment, that should tell you that what action you should take. I can't say anything more than that.
Mr. Chairman, may I talk? It makes sense? It makes sense?
Well, every question that you ask makes sense, and I've also answered you with a lot of sense as well.
All right, thanks.
As usual, we thank you for your questions. David, you want to be next?
Morning, Jason. Morning to the team. David was shareholder. So I was looking back at the 2023 audited financials, page 85 in annual report. So 87 in PDF, if you're looking at the PDF, by the way. So I realized that there was a commitment on undrawn fees line under the fee income area. And I will listen back to you earlier where you said you wanted to grow fee income to about 10% at a later stage over revenue. So firstly, the commitment on undrawn fees represents what one would describe as a credit line available to clients. That's what the commitment on undrawn fees income line is.
Yeah. So basically, let me back up a bit. So to answer the last part of the question, yes, that's what it means, right? But the fee income line has many components. So if you think about one of the things I would have said in the past, which is we want to get to 200, 300 million in AUM very, very fast, because that will create a platform for us to do some things that we can't do when we are smaller than that. And one of the things that we can't do, that we can't write a check for $50 million one time. Like we can't underwrite a $50 million transaction and then sell down, 40 million of it to other co-investors. Now that we have hit 200 million, thereabouts, and we're looking to get to 300 million very fast, what that does, it allows us to bring in a new fee income line, right? Which is basically, if I can underwrite 2 big transactions in a year, and I get 1% underwriting fee, right? And then I sell that down, I can easily make $2 million doing that. So that's how I wanted to think about what that fee income line really is. Yes, we have some fees that for undrawn commitment fees, but those things are minor. The big thing to focus on is the bigger SCI gets, the more economics it can generate from being a private credit fund.
Understood. So to follow up, on the plan to grow, I remember earlier you were speaking about the $100 million credit line that you're still negotiating at the moment. And I remember the prior SCI earnings call, there was a discussion of the impact fund, or, that creation of or expansion of impact investing. So in terms of the broader goal and strategy in the horizon, how does, impact investing fit into that larger expansion goal in terms of generating a significant larger share of interest income for shareholders?
All right, so good observation and good question, right? So let me start with Puerto Rico first. So Puerto Rico has actually, under the Sygnus platform, has 2 impact funds. Those are not part of SCI Puerto Rico's assets under management. So, but going forward in maybe a matter of weeks, SCI is going to sponsor in Puerto Rico a new impact fund, which will be very big. It will be the biggest fund that the company would have launched in its history, right? Again, yeah. So that will obviously bring in revenues based on SCI's participation in that fund. And more at home, there's also, SCI will also be making investment in another transaction that we are currently working on, which you'll hear more about in maybe next week. So, but overall, one of the strategies that SCI is also going to employ is to carve out or focus a good decent size of its portfolio and aligning itself with impact themes. Right now we are doing it, but it's kind of ad hoc, and we want to become more surgical, and we'll actually report that to shareholders in terms of this is what we are doing on the impact front, this is how much revenues we're generating, this is how we're affecting climate change and ESG goals. So that's something that you'll hear about maybe in a short to medium term.
So when you say at home, you meant Jamaica? Or?
At home meaning the English Caribbean.
I have to clarify, because that can mean very many things.
No, home for SCI is the English Caribbean.
Understood.
David will come back to you. Thank you. We're going to take a few questions online now, so we'll have Nicole read those questions. Thanks.
All right. You hearing me? Yeah? Okay, I have a question here from Irene Goodwill. When can we expect to get more information on the 2 target acquisitions and energy investment that SCI has planned?
So I'm happy for that question, right? Because I think people are misinterpreting. So the target acquisition doesn't mean that SCI is buying companies. What I was referencing was SCI is seeing massive demand for acquisition financing, meaning company A is seeking to buy company B. Let's say it costs $100, and company A has, let's say, $20 of equity to do that. And they go to a bank, and the bank says, I'm going to give you $50 or $60, right? So they have 20 plus 60 equals 80. So there's a gap of $20. I'm saying that gap of $20 is where SCI's very flexible capital plays a role, where we can come in and fill that void for the acquirer, and that's what we're referring to as acquisition financing, and we make a very decent change on doing that. And so I was saying that we had 2 transactions that are pretty decent sized transactions, which obviously when they close, you may or may not hear about them, that we are doing, and that's what one of the use of the capital that we raised recently that we said we were going to utilize, and that we are seeing a lot of Jamaican firms doing a lot of acquisitions across the Caribbean region, And because we have flexible capital, which is different from the black box, cookie cutter, standard bank financing, then people are coming to us to help to fund those acquisitions, and therefore it's a nice little environment to be in, given how high interest rates are. Our capital is very flexible, and so we can fund a lot of these and get out, by making a decent change for shareholders. That's what I was referencing when I said acquisition financing. Not that SCI is going to buy 2 new companies.
Okay, this one is from Rayon Thelwell. I saw in a recent article where Jason said SCI has an immediate pipeline of US $75 million in Jamaica. $50 million US was raised in a pref share offer. How will you raise the remaining 25 mil? I understand that the funds to fulfill the pipeline outside of Jamaica is in the process from overseas entities.
Okay, so good question again, right? And I'm happy for the question because I want to let people kind of understand what SCI does. So we raised $50 million, right? So the way I want to think about, if I have $50 million in my pocket and I have a $75 million pipeline, I don't really need to go and raise $25 million immediately, right? Because I could take $25 million, fund a transaction tomorrow, and then syndicate down to John Brown and Mary Jane $15 million of that, and I get back that $15 million, I have it to reuse again, and I can do the same thing quite a number of times. So if I have $50 million, my immediate concern is, okay, I need to deploy the $50 million in a responsible manner, and then when I'm getting close to using up all the $50 million, then I'm going to actually go and try to draw down on other facilities that we are working on. Because I don't want to go and, for example, borrow too much money all at the same time, which is why we have the pref share that closed in December, and then we have 2 other transactions involving that $100 million, which we expect to close at different times strategically, so that you don't take all of this money one time, because we're not going to deploy out the whole $50 million in 1 month, for example. That would be irresponsible. So the fact that we have $50 million, we have some lead time that we have before we really are in need of additional capital, simply because capital isn't cheap in this market. But good observation, and I'm happy to provide the explanation. So in terms of, obviously we have that $100 million pipeline, which I can't tell you when it's going to close. It's still a work in progress. Due diligence is still ongoing. But we hope for them to be closed sometime in either the first quarter or second quarter of this year. And obviously, we can tap other resources as well. We have bank credit lines, so we have many resources at our disposal. But I just want to explain that we can actually reuse the $50 million more than once to actually fund $75 million or even $100 million.
This one is from Oreen Goodwill again. Will SCI possibly consider a stock split to make the GMD shares more attractive from a nominal price standpoint?
All right. So, good question. And I have a philosophy on stock prices, right? So here's where I stand. I see a lot of companies do stock splits, and the stock price rally because investors say cheap. And I've thought about that many times, but I'm really not in that game, right? My position is, whether the stock value $100 or $10, it have the same value. The question is how much profit the company is making relative to the number of shares that are in existence. I don't think that there's any difficulty for investors to buy the J-dollar shares. It's not expensive. I mean, relative to the profit that the company is making, 100 Jamaican dollars is, what can 100 Jamaican dollars buy? Not a lot, right? And if the stock is priced at $10, $14, $9, whatever it fluctuates, to me that's already cheap. So I'm not gonna, my position now is I'm not trying to game the stock. At the end of the day, we have a share buyback plan of up to $9 million US, which is about almost 1.5 billion Jamaican dollars, that we can buy back the shares. And I'm keep telling people the stock is cheap. The stock is undervalued. I don't know how else to say it. Any metric you want to use, it's undervalued and it's cheap. And I hear the argument, and a lot of other companies have done it, but I'm not trying to get people to buy the stock because they think that, oh, it's a penny stock, it's $1 or 50 cents, and so people run go buy it and say, oh, it can double. I'm not in that game, to be honest. I'm just focused on ensuring that we deliver proper financial results, we minimize credit losses so that we don't lose shareholder money, and we make as much profit as possible forever. That's it.
Any more questions online? One more.
This one is from JT. One could argue that the heavy dilution caused by the APO has contributed to stagnating the stock price. One could also argue that the buyback is an acknowledgement of such. If so, does SCI plan to have another APO within the next 5 years?
So good observation again. So let me address the argument of dilution. So if I have $100, right, with 10 shares, everybody, 100 divided by 10 is 10. And I go and raise another $100 and add, let's say, another 100 shares, right? And then I go and, I keep doing this. The question of dilution comes in if each time I'm raising capital, am I increasing earnings per share with the new capital, and am I paying you more dividends with the new capital? Because effectively, you have a smaller share of a bigger pie. So the real question, and of course you will need time to judge this, right? The real question is, each time I raise capital and shareholders are quote-unquote diluted, the shareholder who was there originally look at your dividend check and say, okay, how much dividend I used to get? And then when the new shareholders come in and I got the new capital and I'm ramping up revenues and I'm paying higher dividends and the company is making higher net profit and earnings per share is higher than it was before, then it's actually accretive. So dilution doesn't come simply because I have 100 shares and I issue some additional shares in an APO, you are diluted. There are multiple factors, why share price would go down. As I said before, interest rates went up effectively almost 600 basis points in like 15 months. I can't remember, well, I guess the last time that interest rates in Jamaica went up that fast, we know what happened, right? We went into the doldrums for a very long time. So I'm saying we're in a market where interest rates are very high. All financial stocks get beat up. All of them, they're getting whopping because interest rates are high. And you can take your cash and go and get a decent return in risk-free assets. It's fine. But I'm saying to you that if SCI is acquiring companies and businesses that are in foreign markets that are 10 times the size of Jamaica, Puerto Rico, 100 billion US economy, from Puerto Rico, SCI can launch into US mainland, we can launch into other Spanish-speaking territories. The sky is the limit. So if you buy the shares for the right reason, which is what I keep saying, the shares, they're undervalued. Now, back to the argument about buyback being an acknowledgement. Okay, so we're buying back the shares simply because, not because of the APO, we're buying back the shares because when I look on the balance sheet and I look at the book value of the shares, which is the worst way to actually value a company, and I look at the stock price and I see the stock price below the book value, then it behoves me to benefit the shareholders who are in this for the right reasons and for the long term to buy back the shares. And each time I buy back the shares, earnings per share is going to go up. The dividends that the remaining shareholders who didn't sell their shares to me are going to get is going to increase. If nothing else happens and I pay the same amount of dividend, each 6 months, same amount of dividends, and I do nothing else, and I just keep buying back shares, you're going to get a bigger dividend check if you hold on to your shares. And the earnings per share is going to increase. So, I don't know how else to bell this cat. I've said it many, many, many times. The stock is undervalued. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear.
Yeah, I just want to add as well that when we started Sygnus Credit Investment, we did give a commitment to shareholders that we'll have a buyback program started in year 5, and that was approved by the board. So we are basically honoring our commitment because that buyback program not only helps the earnings per share, but it also gives liquidity to investors who want to exit. It's additional liquidity window for those investors.
Test. Okay. Hi, guys. I'm Edward. I'll be brief so you can answer briefly as well. It's a two-part question. It's on tenor and general management and risk management, right? I'll take the risk management first. I am sold 50 million to 200 million, aiming at 1 billion. As a shareholder, I love it. But it's a question of risk, though. Do you see scaling it up to that level? Does it make the management of risk or management or fund management difficult or more difficult, or it's something that you guys see that you can manage with that? That is the first question. The second question is on tenor. If I remember correctly, I think it's 1.75 years, and I recall months ago, I'm not sure if it was Mr. Gray mentioning that you had credit issuance below a year that you could rotate, if I'm getting it right. I was wondering how, if I was hearing correctly, how has that been going for small businesses within the year that had passed? So scaling up risk management and tenor.
It's a very good question, right? Exceptionally good question on risk management. These are the type of questions I love to address because this is getting to the heart of what SCI does. So if you think about the business that we have built, right? We have built a modular business. What that means, we started with 16 million, idea and paper. Obviously, you're going to have some learnings as you build the business. Then you grow the business, so you scale it up each time. But this $16 million capital that we started with, the processes, the procedures, the oversight, the governance is all streamlined. Obviously, over time, you have to enhance it. So the bigger you grow, you're just adding modules to the same process. And Yashi Hall is sitting right there. She's the head of risk management, right? Perhaps I should let her come and answer these questions. But SCI started as a brand new company before we had the first dollar with signed risk management policies from the board level all the way down. No joke. So if you came and look at SCI's risk management policies, you would think that is Scotia or NCB or any big bank. Why? Well, remember that we used to work at, in our former lives at those other firms. And we know, so we are not foreign to risk management culture. And our central ethos was to ensure that we build an institution. This is not a fly-by-night operation or a hustle. It's an institution. And when I say institution, the proof of the pudding is the fact that we raise capital as a private placement company from majority institutional investors. We got to IPO, and the majority of the money came from institutional investors, meaning pension funds primarily. You know how hard it is to get pension fund money? In an APO, majority of the investors, pension fund money. Right now, majority of the capital that we have are pension fund money. So what that means is that they put us through the ringer. One institution sent us 53 questions for us to answer. when we were doing the private placement of 16 million. So I'm saying that to say that we have an institution, we have risk management framework, risk management policies, the governance structure in terms of independence of how decisions are made, the screening process, the monitoring, the following up, the collect money, etc., etc. When an asset go bad, how you resolve it, etc., right? So if I move from 100 million to 200 million to $1 billion, it doesn't matter. Because what matters is ensuring that I add the additional resources as you scale. So you scale the resources with the business. And once we do that, we won't have any problem. And to give you insight into that, Sygnus actually, during COVID, hired the most number of persons in the history of the company. Meaning in COVID, when everybody is a layoff people, we're about 15 or so people, all of our people. And today, so the company started with 7 people, the manager, and now we have 50 people. And we added people. Every year we have been growing staff. Why? Because as the business grows, we are growing the underlying resources. So it won't be a problem in terms of risk. As a matter of fact, when we get to a certain target threshold, it will be easier for us to do certain things. As I explained before, there are certain things that we can't do to make certain type of money, and there are certain doors we can't get into because we're not big enough, right? And the other question about tenor. So anything about the tenor, I mean, this is an evolving thing, right? If I'm doing bridge financing for acquisition, it's going to be short. It's not going to be long. You know what I mean? When the economic conditions kind of stabilize, then obviously you will see the average life of the portfolio increase, because then we feel comfortable about predicting what the future holds, and we can go and put down some money for 5 years, and the average life of the fund gets up to 3-4 years, because you're going to still have some short-term stuff. So you have to look at the average life as really where the majority of the transactions coming from, and if we've seen a lot of acquisition financing and that's where the demand is, and it's really primarily bridge, then that's what the average life is going to reflect. When winds change and economic conditions are not so tight, and therefore there aren't so many companies who are looking to sell, and people need more working capital support, etc., then that will increase the average life. But excellent question. I really wanted to address that.
Any more questions? That's it. Okay, so we have come to this segment, and I just want to add a very quick point. So SCI is in the business of deploying capital, and raising capital is like the inventory of any business, right? So we'll continue to raise money, and that will be in the form of debt and equity. The issue of dilution is not an issue for SCI, because we're not a company that we have one or so majority shareholder is concerned about giving up control, meaning less than 51%. SCI is 100% listed, and so no shareholder should be concerned about dilution, because dilution is really an issue for having control. So that's the first thing. The more equity we raise in the form of pref or APO is the more debt we can leverage to maintain that 2-to-1 ratio Jason mentioned, so we can expand into new and exciting markets. Okay, so thanks again for your questions, and I'll hand back to Mr. Chairman.
Thank you again, Gregory. I mean, this session has really shown me that, as a shareholder, to my fellow shareholders, that the company is really in good hands. Very, very confident responses to the various questions that were asked, I would say. Okay, so we're at the point now, having heard and a summary of the financial position of the company, to take the resolution and the audited financial statements. So we now formally propose resolution number 1, that the audited financial statements for the year ended 30 June 2023 and the reports of the directors and auditors circulated with the notice convening the meeting be and are hereby adopted. Of course, we've gone through the whole process of those who are on the platform, how to register your votes, and then those who are here, will you vote by show of hands, and Mr. Andrew Foreman will oversee this segment of it. So the resolution is on the floor.
All right. Shareholders in favor, could you indicate so by a show of hands with that red armband? Again, please. And those against? Thank you. We'll now take the tally of those online. Chair, we have a majority for the resolution.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. The motion to accept the audited financial statements along with the reports thereon, the motion was duly carried. Okay, we get on to the second motion, declaration of dividends. That the interim dividends per stock units of US $0.0016 paid in April 23 and the US $0.00272 paid in October 2023 be treated on the recommendation of the directors as the final dividend for the financial year ended 30 June 2023. Motion is now on the floor for voting.
By show of hands, please. Again, please. Those against?
Yes, didn't sign. Mr. Chairman, and the next.
Wait, Mr. Livingston, just a second. We need to finish the motion. Mr. Chairman, are you voting against or?
Yeah, against. Yeah. I was saying something.
We have to finish the motion.
We'll now take the votes of those online. The resolution is carried, Chair.
Okay, thank you again, Andrew. So the resolution for the approval of the dividends as declared, has been carried. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Sure, the directors and the management will consider that. It would make us all happy as shareholders, right? Yes, sir. Okay. All right. The next resolution is that of the director's remuneration, that the amount shown in the audited financial statements for the financial year ended 30 June 2023 as remuneration to the directors for their services be and is hereby approved. Motion is now on the floor for voting.
By show of hands, please. Could you just keep your hands up, please? And we'll now take the votes of those online. Chair, the resolution is carried.
Okay, thank you again, Andrew. So the resolution for the approval of the director's remuneration is hereby carried. And then the final resolution we have is for the appointment of the auditors and authorization of their remuneration. So the resolution that KPMG Chartered Accountants, having agreed to remain in office as auditors, be and are hereby appointed auditors of the company to hold office until the next annual general meeting and at a remuneration to be agreed by the directors of the company. The motion is now on the floor for voting.
By show of hands, please. And keep them up, please. Thank you. And those against? We'll now take the votes of those online. Chair, the resolution is carried.
Okay, thank you again, Andrew. So the motion to appoint the auditors and authorizing the directors to fix their remuneration is so carried. Thank you very much, shareholders, for your participation and ensuring the smooth flow of voting on these resolutions. Okay, we're at this juncture where we're going to be hearing from Mr. Beresford Gray, the CEO of Sygnus Capital Limited. Sygnus Capital Limited, as many of you are aware, is the investment manager for SCI. After Beres's presentation, we're also going to have another question and answer period. So if there are lingering questions that you have that weren't answered in the first segment, then we'll have another segment to present these questions. So Beres, you're on, our visionary leader, some describe you as, and CEO.
Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, of course, good morning. I think I'll start my remarks by saying one thing, or maybe two. The share price is undervalued. The share price is undervalued. Okay? I will say that, and I'll leave that with you. Maybe I should even finish speaking. But as my partner Jason highlighted, investment is all about themes. Themes, it's all about conviction about themes, conviction about a business model, conviction about an industry, a sector, or an asset class. SCI was designed and offered to shareholders, to investors, because we had a conviction, a firm conviction about an asset class called private credit, a theme, alternative investment. And we were convinced about the longevity, the sustainability of that asset class. That is what SCI is about for shareholders. It's an investment, an opportunity for you to participate in private credit in the Caribbean region, in the broader alternative investment asset class, which up until Sygnus, that wasn't a big theme that was offered to investors in the market. Today, at the 6th AGM of SCI, we're absolutely still convinced about that thesis. We're actually even more vested and convinced about the value and the runway that this asset class represents for our shareholders and investors. And I'm going to step back to help you to really understand. And I hope when I explain to you, you will leave here singing the song, the share price is on the value. Okay? What's happening in the global market? This is what's happening in the global market. The private credit market is currently 1.3 trillion. Many of you probably don't remember this, but I think maybe during COVID 2020 or so, I sat here, or stand rather, and I said at the time, the private credit market at that time was 630 billion, if I remember, and it was forecasted to grow to $1 billion by 2023. I think that was the point I made. It has now surpassed $1 billion. It has now surpassed $1 trillion, right? But during that period, between 2020 and now, it grew by roughly 20%, 23% to be exact per year. Prior to that, when private credit didn't exist in Jamaica as an asset class, say between 2010 and 2019, it grew by 12% per year. So what we have seen during the pandemic, an acceleration of growth in private credit. What has happened in Jamaica? Since Sygnus has started, we have also seen pioneering effort of private credit. We have seen consistent growth in the asset class, which is what Jason pointed to and outlined. And that growth has reflected itself not only in the growth of your business from 16 million US starting total capital to now I think we are 164. That's our total asset. That's significant growth over a 6-year period. Similarly, we have seen profitability in this business move from 400,000+ to 5.1 million last year. That's again a significant growth. So we are mirroring what is happening in the global market, which is a much more mature market for private credit. What does that say to me, to Sygnus, and should say to you as shareholders? What it is saying is that the runway for growth, the runway for shareholder value creation, we're not even scratching the surface yet. We have not scratched the surface of the private credit market yet. Let me put this in perspective. Private credit, and the reason why it is very attractive, and the reason why SCI business model and opportunity to create value is unique is because of this. On one hand, private credit offer an opportunity for fixed income investors, pension funds, individuals like yourselves, high net worth individuals, the general market, to participate in a fixed income type investment that in most cases has a granular portfolio, meaning you are exposed to not one instrument, like if you go and buy one bond, you are exposed to, I don't know, hundreds of or even in some cases, thousands of different companies. So that creates a lot of diversification. From a yield point of view, history has shown, and this I was reading a research by J.P. Morgan, that private credit has outperformed high yield bonds. So if you take a single B, triple C, any type of bond up onto triple B minus, private credit market has outperformed that asset class, and it has actually has lower loss. And we see that in our own portfolio, our own journey. So you have an asset class that is superior to the competing, let's call it the competing asset class. So on the investor side, investors love it, and that's why we are seeing funds being attracted globally in the asset class. And the capital, the users of capital side, this is companies that are looking for financing solutions, for creativity. They love it as well. Why? Because through businesses like SCI, we have agility, flexible capital. We can create financing solutions for them that complement their capital structure or complement their existing financing solutions. What that allows for businesses to do, it allows them to accelerate their growth either through acquisition or organically through new products, etc. So if you have a business where the users of capital love it, investors love it, then this means that private credit and SCI in the context of the Caribbean is providing a very, very unique solution to the business society and to the society as a whole. What does that translate into? If you have a business that is solving a big problem, it means that your growth path is sustainable, and it also means that the acceleration and rate of growth that you see in SCI year over year is deliberate. It is not accidental, it's not luck. And that's why Jason, as our chief investment manager, can come here year after year and promise that we will always pay a dividend, promise that we will scale the business, promise all the other things that make SCI a viable business. So I want shareholders to really understand the type of asset that you have invested in, and also understand the conviction of our investment thesis that you are participating in. You are participating in a pioneering effort across the region, and it is bearing fruit. The share price is on the value. Okay? It's there. All right. The other thing I want to point out is this. When we talk about sustainability and continue to grow the business, we are really presenting to you as shareholders things that we have spent hours to analyze, rationalize, interrogate. So when we present ideas around how we are going to grow this business, and some of the things that Jason talked about, and I'll reiterate them because these are the way we are going to grow value for you. International partnership. We are well down the wicket with negotiating credit lines and financing arrangements with international partners. What that means is that SCI as a business is diversifying its funding base. And that's necessary because our pipeline is when our pipeline right now, I'm talking Jamaica alone, is over $100 million. US. Yes. I think it's a couple, I don't know what, 115 billion, J, something like that. But it's huge. Why? Because the users of capital has now become aware that there is a market and there's a firm called SCI that supply and support their businesses using private credit. So we need to satisfy that demand. There's no private credit business in the Caribbean, well, I mean not say in the Caribbean, in Jamaica or the English-speaking Caribbean that has managed to attract capital from international partners. None. So that will allow SCI to propel itself to another level in the value creation process. We have the pipeline and we have the capital diversification to complement the capital that you continue to invest in the company. The other important thing, and I think this shareholder asked that question, and I'm very happy that you asked that question, because one of the things that we are doing as we scale the business is look at efficiency. All the metrics that you looked at, the management efficiency ratio, efficiency of the firm, all those are looking great. The MER is below 2.85. Our efficiency is consistently below 40%. But we want to do better. SCI and the drive of Sygnus is to make SCI a best-in-class private credit investment company. When we talk about best-in-class, what do we mean by that? All of our metrics, all of our KPIs, efficiency ratio, MER, dividend yield, return on equity, all of those things, we want them to be comparable to the best in class in North America. We don't have any competitor, to be honest, in the Caribbean that we can benchmark against. So we have to elevate and aspire to that level. Best in class. So we are building a business that, as international partnership, is aspiring to have best in class performance metrics. And we are going to achieve those best in class performance metrics because, one, collectively in Sygnus, the manager of the business, and I don't want to feel as if I'm so old already, but collectively, I was just adding up some numbers when I sit there. We have, I'm close to 60, but collectively we have about 200 years of experience between our IRMC, our senior executive team in the financial services industry. That's a lot of experience in Puerto Rico, the team in Puerto Rico, the team in Jamaica, our IRMC. That represents a lot of depth and experience. And you need that in order to grow and manage the business to the type of scale that we are talking about. We're also, and thanks to ICU, Jason said is in Puerto Rico and has been in Puerto Rico since the acquisition. We have completed the integration of the Puerto Rico business with the Jamaica business, and we are now implementing one regional, what you call credit management system. So you look at the portfolio and manage it in one credit management system. All of those things will drive efficiency and help us to scale the business without having to step back. We are anticipating all of these things as we grow. So that's why I love your question. All right, the other thing I want to address before I wrap up, because I think Jason has dig into a lot of the things that are really relevant to the business. What I want to leave with you is the final point around asset classes. So we have brought exposure to the company through diversification geographically. There's no company on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, actually, I'll actually bet on this, that is a listed financial services company that has the level of geographic diversification in terms of investment that SCI has. SCI has investment in probably 8 or more countries across the Caribbean, right? There's no company on the local company on the Jamaica Stock Exchange that I could probably bet that has such a diverse portfolio, right? So we bring portfolio diversification, we're bringing funding diversification, we are overlaying that with operational efficiency that I talk about, and best practice in terms of KPIs, and obviously experience. So the final point to this is really to bring new asset classes to the table, which is why we believe that through other initiatives that Sygnus are doing, SCI will have an opportunity. It already does that in Puerto Rico, but I'm talking in the English-speaking Caribbean, to start participate in impact investing strategies. This is a big theme globally for asset manager, huge theme. And there are a lot of opportunities that we see in alternatives, renewables, various forms of impact. SCI, as the largest private credit company in the Caribbean, is well positioned to participate in that investment theme. When SCI start doing that as a private credit company, then SCI is going to start, let's use the word, transition away from the traditional Caribbean business to start looking like a global business, right? A global alternative investor who can boast. Who can boast that, listen, I'm taking pension fund money, I'm taking individual investor money, I'm raising 50 million in December in tough market conditions, and I'm deploying it in the areas of the economies of the Caribbean that matters most, areas that help to drive growth and resilience, and at the same time, delivering shareholder value. Why you are delivering shareholder value? Because everything I just said is overlaid by the ambition of making the business a best-in-class, globally comparable private credit business. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave with you. The stock price is undervalued. Thank you very much.
I think we're going to have another quick question and answer now, if necessary. Gregory?
Yes, we're going to, as Greg moved to the microphone, we're going to have one more Q&A. This is 15 minutes. So as usual, we'll take some from the audience and we'll take the questions we have online. We had 2 persons right now who wanted to ask questions. I'm going to start with this gentleman here, and then I'm going to hand over to another young lady over there, and then we'll take another 2 from the audience, and then we'll go to online. So I'll hand over. Oh, you as well.
Good morning, fellow shareholders.
Morning.
Name is Mark Anthony Barton, shareholder. I would like to commend the board for another wonderful, profitable year for us, and keep continuing to give us quality shareholder value. The dividend is wonderful, and I will continue as a minority shareholder to do my best to acquire the stock. You don't have to say it more than once. We have determined the undervaluation of the quality of this company for the past 2 years, and each time it dips below a particular price, I'm not going to give away my secret. I get very busy. The question I have is, In the annual report, I notice an absence of the first 5 or 6 years of financial information for comparison. Is that something you could look at going into next year's annual report?
Yes. Thank you for that question and observation, and yes, we're going to start doing that.
All right, I think you should have done that already, but thank you very much for that. All right, and another question. Our acquisition in Puerto Rico, when is their financial year end?
So their financial year end is December, but that has transitioned now to align with SCI's financial year end. So next, I guess this June coming, their financial year is going to align with ours.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Paulette Robinson, a shareholder. Just something that I've noticed, the resolutions that were just passed a while ago, we were just told that the motion has been passed, but we have not been given the specifics. How many persons voted, how many persons abstained, how many persons did not agree with the motion, and the total number of shareholders, so we can actually note that the motion was passed. But we were just told that the motion is passed. I think we should be given the specifics going forward. Thank you.
Sorry, you can hand the mic to that gentleman to your left, and he'll give you all of the information.
Thank you so much for that question. For good order and for the benefit of the records of the meeting, a total of 108 shareholders have attended in person or by proxy. The first resolution regarding the audited accounts was carried by 78 shareholders voting in favor and none against. The second resolution, which dealt with the ratification of the interim dividends, was carried by 77 shareholders with 1 against, Mr. Livingston. The third resolution, regarding the election of directors for Mr. Linval Freeman, were 68 shareholders in favor and 1 against and online. Regarding the election of Ms. Hope Fisher, 69 in favor and 2 against online. And the fourth resolution regarding the director's remuneration, 75 shareholders voted in favor, none against. And the final resolution, the appointment of the auditors, 75 shareholders voted in favor with none against.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Question.
Should be on now, all right. Morning again. So, earlier, Jason, you were mentioning that David Rose, good?
Yes.
So earlier you were mentioning that around the December period there would have been a reversal in terms of the fair value loss that had been observed for Acrescent. That's correct? Could you clarify that?
Just to be clear, right? Not giving out material non-public information. I said to the end of the September quarter, the Fed was on a hiking spree. Everyone thought the Fed was going to continue hiking, so interest rates went up a lot, and valuations for U.S. stocks in the U.S. went down. And therefore, given we are using publicly traded price-to-book values to value the Puerto Rican asset, then the valuation of that asset went down. And then I proceeded to say, at the end of December 2023, there was a reversal of the Fed expectation to continue hiking, where interest rates were lower than they were in September, and therefore you can cast your own judgment.
As I said, Jason, I prefer clarity than ambiguity. Understood. And then to just, follow up again. So I know that, Sygnus Credit no longer breaks out the segmentation of how its investment portfolio is spread across. It was only for the first year. And I remember earlier speaking to the demand that you're seeing in acquisition financing. So, first part of the question is, amidst what one would describe as a slowdown in the traditional space, like the banking space, for example, and somewhat to an extent the capital markets, how has, demand held up for clients who are looking to tap into alternative space or alternative areas to seek credit?
Right, so if you think about SCI is very different from a bank, right? Bank does, standard credit cards, what I call cookie cutter loans, etc., and they are exposed to a lot of cyclicality, right? So to draw some parallels, in the US, when bank financing is slowing down, that's when private credit actually accelerates because of the flexibility of the debt capital that private credit is deploying. So in our business, and by the way, in our business, majority of our business comes from repeat relationships. SCI doesn't have like 1,000 different relationships. We have some what you call core clients who have multiple businesses and they seek us out. Why? Because we can solve a problem for them that banks can't solve. And so, given the environment that we are in, where interest rates have gone up and it's very high, if you're a company and you're looking to grow very fast, one of the things that you don't want is, let's say, a lot of amortization, meaning paying back a lot of principal with interest, right? You want, if you're going to grow fast, you want to be able to retain some of the money that you borrow to put it into the business so that the business can actually achieve its growth. And if you do an acquisition, if you're doing an acquisition, that's going to be a very, very important thing for you to do, because after you acquire the business, you need to integrate the business into your operations, and you need time for you to start to see the benefits of that acquisition. And so, as I said before, because a lot of Jamaican entrepreneurs are extremely active in terms of either acquiring other local businesses, because we have a lot of people who are in their 70s and 80s who have run their business for the last 40, 50 years, and they have gotten to that age where they want to retire from the day-to-day activity of running those businesses, and they want to go on a yacht somewhere, they want to visit Europe, etc., right? And so they don't have, maybe their family members aren't as involved in the business anymore, etc. So, because we are seeing a lot of this, it means that there are a lot of opportunities in Jamaica and across the Caribbean for acquisitions to take place, because there are a lot of persons who are looking to sell, to exit. So, our pipeline is way bigger than what Barry said, actually. Pipeline is probably twice as big as what the 100 million that he mentioned. Because demand is just there because of what's happening.
And this is the final question. So earlier you mentioned that you're looking to, well, I think it was on the screen earlier about moving more towards, executing more of the buyback later this year during the financial year. I noticed whereby the buyback was done, at the end of June, because it was required based on the original terms of the prospectus. And, for that second half of the year, there was no relative activity with the buyback. So with the company, with the price trading at probably a 30% discount to book, not the perfect example, but still, and, just continued bearishness in the market, wouldn't it be a great time for Sygnus to redeploy some of this capital to repurchase shares just even ahead of the potential dividend consideration?
I have $9 million of firepower, and I can use it at any time. That's it.
Question
okay, we're going to take a few questions online, and we'll get back to you, Mr. Livingston. So we'll hand over to Nicole now. Thank you.
This question is from Matthew Preston. Are you planning to do any more equity raises over the next year?
So if by equity raise you mean do an additional public offering? No.
This is from the same person. No. Yeah. Does SCI have plans for an employee share ownership program?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Does SCI have plans for an employee share ownership program?
SCI doesn't have any employees, so the answer to that question is no.
All right, this one is from Marcia Campbell. Please provide an update on SCI's exposure, if any, to the Mystic Mountain payout to creditors.
So we have $1 million investment in Mystic, and our last set of information is that we should be able to get back our investment through multiple channels, one of which is collateral that we have outside, as well as from the payment that we suspect that will be made to the secured and unsecured investors, of which SCI is the largest unsecured investor.
Okay, last question from Marva Campbell. Could you provide an update on the listing of the recent pref share?
Oh, so the ceremony, listing ceremony is going to occur on Friday morning. So I think that as of Friday, the shares will be public listed and available for trading.
Mr. Livingston, I think, has a question. Oh, it's Mr. Bloomfield. Okay, and then we'll have one more question. So we'll go with Mr. Bloomfield first. Good to see you, Mr. Bloomfield. And then we're going to go one question from you, Mr. Livingston. Our online shareholders need to take lunch, so we want to make sure that everybody can go. We're ending precisely at 12:30. All right. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Pleasant good morning. I am Lanza Bloomfield, shareholder. Mr. Chairman, before I ask my two questions, we have been given a lot to chew on, but we have not been given an update on One Belmont. So could you give us an update on One Belmont? But please allow me to ask the two questions. Page 86, note 22, expenses by nature. In 2022, your professional fees was $91.6 thousand US. In 2023, the fee has climbed to US $215.79 thousand. Why is this significant jump?
Okay, let me address that. Let me address the first two. So this is Sygnus Credit Investments Limited AGM, so I won't take questions on One Belmont in this meeting. Second question about the jump in professional fees, very simple answer. So we had to close out the integration of Acquisent Financial Corporation during the last financial year, and to do that we had to consult we had to consult our lawyers in Puerto Rico. And we had to therefore pay them for their services, along with some other expenses in relation to the integration of Acquisent. And we also had some one-off professional expenses for consultants dealing with things that we have to do for audited financial statements, etc.
So will we see a reduction in this fee going forward?
Well, I could say yes, but then, we don't have control over new requirements that may arise that require us to hire consultants to advise us. So from time to time, there are one-off things that will occur, and we have to hire consultants to do this. And from our perspective, those have to be done, otherwise the financial statements may not be in good order.
Okay. Page 44. The first key audit matter. The auditor has noted the valuation of the group's investment of US $47.5 million in 2023 and US $50 million. There is a US $50 million in 2022. There is a significant assumption of the performance of the counterparties and the expected cash flows. Therefore, should these investments not realize their true potential, are there countermeasures to minimize loss?
So, interesting question. The way how we look at our investments, we follow best practice, and that's the reason why we have a top 5 audit firm auditing SCI. So we have been doing this now for 6 years, and we have had investments that we have repeatedly done, and so far our assumptions have borne out the way that we have predicted them to be. So we assume that based on our best efforts, that's what will continue to be in the future. But in terms of how we would mitigate, it's just our risk management practices and procedures from the time that we're assessing the transaction to put it on the books, or we put in a good transaction on the book. After we put the good transaction on the book, do we have good monitoring from the personnel who are doing the monitoring, to the procedures that we utilize in monitoring, to every single week, in those weekly meetings, every single month, monthly risk committee meeting every single quarter, going to the board asking us questions, going to investment and risk committee being drilled. So we have an entire process of risk management that we utilize to monitor. We meet with companies every month, every other month. We get financial statements from companies. So yes, there's a lot of assumptions, but it's the same process and procedure that every financial institution everywhere in Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean and the world utilizes, and we have adopted and are following best practice to ensure that we mitigate against any surprises.
Thank you very much.
You are most welcome.
Livingston Young, Mr. Chairman. Page 98, note D and note V. Credit risk, Mr. Chairman. 1 stage, 2 stage, 3 stage, a financial statement, a company. Here, Mr. Chairman. All right, credit guard, standing momentum of 97,525,000, that is stage 1. Early waivers restored of the debtful, assist dashing between the two early waivers and restore doubtful, the two dash. I don't know what the signal. That is stage 1. Stage 2, 520,304,427. I see a dash there. I don't know what that signifies. Stage 3, 237 million. 227,527,000. That's stage 3. Give an explanation on impairment, allowance, investment of 48,356,000. And stage 3 again, 37,574,000. Stage 3, 5,039,000 and $818. You can explanation on investment, real estate arrangement of momentum costs. Given the 3 reasons, note D and note V. Note D and V.
Okay, thanks for your question. So first of all, those numbers are actually not in millions. If I had 200 and odd million, right, worth of
97,000
ECL, that means we would have a couple billion well in.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for correcting me. All right. Yeah.
So in simplicity, right, in credit, based on the accounting standards, you have 3 different stages that a company can be in. Stage 1, the company is doing according to your expectations or better, and you assess that and have a value for how much money you expect to lose over the life of the investment. And stage 2 means that, okay, the company is not doing as well, but it's not, so it's almost in a watch zone then. And stage 3 is when a company has actually defaulted, meaning it's in a situation where you now have to claim on any collateral that you have or try to recover your money by whatever means, whether you go to court and sue somebody or etc., etc.
Mr. Stearman, look at page 2. Restoration are doubtful. That dash between under 500 and 23,000. That little dash, what that signify in stage 2?
It means nil. There's nothing.
Oh. Yeah, your parent allowance in investment, you have expression on it now, a 48 million children.
Thousand.
Yeah, 48,000. You have explanation on it from the please.
Yes. So impairment allowance simply means I have $100 in assets, in investments, and each time I put an investment on the book, I have to run a model to determine how much, what's the probability of me losing money, one, and then after I've determined what's the probability of losing money, I have to determine how much money I expect to lose given the probability. So, based on all the assets that we have on the balance sheet, when we do our model running, it came up to 48,000, which effectively is just saying, okay, I expect that I could lose 48,000 over the upcoming financial year. And every financial year, when we produce audited financial statements, that value is going to change based on the composition of the portfolio and what our expectations are. So like in COVID, it would have been a big number because the economic environment was very choppy and unknown, and companies now make no revenue, etc. Now that the economic environment has improved, it means that that value has actually declined because it was much bigger during COVID. So it's actually improving.
Mr. Chairman, we already know say everything.
Mr. Livingston, no, we're going to have to pause here. No, what you can do, sorry, we'll take that question from Jason, directly with Jason, but I have to have respect for the other shareholders online. So we're going to pause here, and I'm going to hand it back to the chairman, and we'll take the questions after. Over to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions.
Okay, thank you again. Our interim chairman there, Gregory. And again, I just want to emphasize that, with the presentation that Boris made and all you've been hearing, is that the company is really in very good hands, right? I think Boris mentioned that in terms of number of years experience, he was doing some addition and it's 200 and something years. He had forgotten to put me on it because it would have been way past 300. Right? So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, fellow shareholders, everyone, I think we are winding down now. We're closing down. And with all the questions being answered, and as Serlin says, we can take some of the questions, once we finish here offline, one-on-one with Jason, and get any additional answers that you may require. I'm going to invite David to just give the vote of thanks now that we are closing off. Thank you.
Chairman, shareholders, directors, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I think the first thank you is for undervalued shares. It is my turn to wish you all a Happy New Year. And even as we are here to reflect on an outstanding performance in 2023, looking forward, we do wish for you all a successful 2024. With that, it is my distinct pleasure to move the vote of thanks on behalf of Sygnus Credit Investments and by extension, the entire Sygnus Group. Firstly, thank you to everyone who has taken the time to join us this morning, whether in person here at the AC Marriott Hotel or virtually. We sincerely appreciate your presence. It is worth repeating here that we have and never will take you for granted and give you the continued assurance of our endless quest to grow your belief in Sygnus Credit Investments, to preserve your shareholder value, deliver great results, and of course, pay dividends. Sygnus Credit Investments is your company, and we assure you that the entire team is steadfast and laser-focused in their efforts to continue delivering these robust performances and results. Thank thank you all for considering and passing the 5 resolutions this morning. To the Chairman of the Board of Directors of SCI, Mr. Linval Freeman, and to the President and CEO of the Sygnus Group, Mr. Beresford Gray, thank you for your continued robust leadership in guiding the company to achieve these annual results. We also express our gratitude to the innovative and industrious investment banking and investment management teams led by Mr. Gregory Samuels and Mr. Jason Morris, respectively, whose leadership and guidance have driven SCI to this outstanding performance, supported, of course, by the various business units and teams within Sygnus. As you're all aware, it takes a collaborative effort to successfully stage events of this nature. And so we now recognize those directly and indirectly involved in bringing this to reality. First, we extend our thanks to our Vice President and Head of Legal and Compliance, Ms. Serlin Hudson, and her team, who spent many hours in planning and organizing this AGM. We are here enjoying the harvest of their tireless labor to bring this meeting to fruition. Thank you also to the formidable Sygnus marketing team led by Elizabeth James and Renee Rickards, who invested so much thoughtfulness and energy into creating and leading this production. Allow me to single out their first-class team of innovative practitioners and production specialists who built on their created foundation. The production team includes Phase 3 for the audio and video, the Appfinity team for establishing the online streaming platform and facilitating voting, Agile, our long-standing and trusted IT partner, Reasons and Seasons for the decor, to Jose, our videographer. It's not Jose today. For the media footage, he will be sharing on multiple platforms. Oh, sorry, Jose is here. Yes, my apologies, Jose. I looked over here. So he will, of course, be sharing the media footage on multiple platforms, and, of course, to LH Multimedia for their consistently outstanding photography. The production team also includes Sarah and her Simply Dandy team for the production of the agenda and the annual report, written by our investment management team, and as you just seen here, smiling. As always, the report is intuitive and makes for easy reading. We're also grateful to the media for their positive coverage of the report and, of course, the results that SCI has achieved. We would like to also express our appreciation to the management and staff at the AC Marriott Hotel for their impeccable hosting and support for this function. To all of the other unsung heroes behind the scenes who I may not have named specifically, we acknowledge and thank you. Finally, thank you all for attending this annual general meeting of your company, Sygnus Credit Investments, and we look forward to seeing you next year. May God bless you, and may you all have a successful and productive 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That said, this brings us to the end of the formal business of the meeting, and I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you all for your participation and interest, and we look forward to your continued support in the coming year. Just 2 small notices. Those shareholders who do not have an email address, we are asking or encouraging you to register your email address with the registrar. That's one. And the second one, is that we would like to have more direct deposits to your accounts for the dividend checks rather than mailing out checks. So for those of you who don't have any direct deposit arrangement with the JCSD, we're asking you to go online with the JCSD and register. It's really an easy process, so we can pay you directly rather than emailing checks to you every time we pay a dividends. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, once again, thank you for joining us today. We take this opportunity to wish you all the best, good health for 2024, and we'll be back here next year, God's willing. Because in everything we do, we have to remember that God is part of it, right? So, see you next year. Thank you.